Hey, everybody. This is Troy from Out of Time, or at least one half of the duo. Today, I wanted to talk about Roman foundation myths. So, these are all things that the Romans considered actual history. A lot of them are obviously myths, but what this does is it talks a lot about the Roman mindset. So, when you see what they do later, all throughout their history, as long as the Romans themselves are running the show, you can see a lot of these morals, these ethos kind of creep into their actions and why they do the things they do. And a big one with the Romans is if your ancestor was a fish seller, or he was a sailor, or he was a soldier, or he was a patrician. These are the things that would be expected out of you. So if one of your relatives was a coward, it could kind of be expected that you might be a coward too. Yeah.
Generational.
Or one of the stories we have tonight, one of the founding members of Rome itself, his great, 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 great ancestor did what he did and overturned the entire Roman Republic because of this blood debt that he felt that he had to his
Mm.
ancestor to keep the Roman Republic a republic. So, first story. So the first one is a very famous book, is written by a Roman name or an author named Virgil. The name of the book is the Aeneid. So this is the I guess original founding myth. Not going to get into the history of when these myths came into the lexicon and how they entered the historical record. We're not here to debate history. I'm just here to tell you a story. So the Aeneid is the fall of the city of Troy. So you've got the Trojan War. Aeneas is the cousin of King Priam, the king of Troy. And remember, his son Paris is the one that stole Helen. And then you had Hector, the brother hero that fought Achilles.
He died too, right?
Yeah, Hector got killed.
Over some
Priam,
chick.
yeah, well,
That
how
wasn't
many
even his
wars had
chick.
started over chicks? This is the original chick war.
Mhm.
I even have a theory on the American Civil War and how chicks were behind.
Part of that too.
That's a theory.
What is wrong with us?
I know. Well, you can't accept responsibility for your own actions. I mean, come on. No, but the foundation myth of Rome stems from the Trojan War. So that's why when you see um, later on, and I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll tell the story real quick. So it's a very quick story. So Aeneas flees Troy. He's on the run, and it takes him 6 years. This 6 year odyssey,
Mm.
the same Odyssey kind of story.
Is that where that comes from?
Well, the Odyssey actually comes from Odysseus, one of the Greek heroes that sacked Troy, and his return to the island of Ithaca,
Mm.
and his reclaiming of his throne and all that stuff. Similar kind of story for the Romans. The Aeneas spends 6 years traveling all over the Mediterranean, ends up around Carthage, and hooks up with Queen Dido,
Mm.
who was this beautiful queen. Um, and he spends a long time there, much like Heracles or Hercules. Uh, in his travels throughout and staying with the beautiful maidens on the island, same kind of thing. He's trapped there. Well,
Mm.
his mother, Aeneas's mother, is the goddess Aphrodite. So Aphrodite helps him get free, breaks the spell. He flees Queen Dido. Queen Dido is so distraught that
She went down with the ship. I will go down with this ship.
hell hath no fury. Yeah, she's like, you scorn me, I'll get you and yours. This is the foundation of the blood feud between Carthage and Rome, at least according to the Roman authors. So it's a love gone wrong story that ends up being played out on the battlefield. So that is the pretty much the foundation myth of how the Romans started. And when you see them conquer the East, what's now known as Turkey, there was a lot of Greek civilizations there, and Greece itself. They subjugate the Greeks. They respect the Greeks. They adopt their gods. They adopt a lot of customs. The best slave you could get would be an educated Greek who could teach your children. A lot of these Greeks found themselves in positions of trust and authority, but they were still slaves because what did the Greeks do? Well, they destroyed Troy. And you can't let that stuff slide. So that's basically the Aeneid in a nutshell, and why the Romans paid attention to that. Now we go to the second story. This is sometime after Aeneas settles his tribe, his people in central Italy, and there's that area of Italy is ruled by a people called the Etruscans. So the Etruscans are a Greek style people also. They've got their own culture, but they adopt a lot of Greek ways and customs and things like that, and even ways of fighting in the phalanx, these kinds of things.
Right.
So their king is Amulius, and Amulius is threatened by these this rival group, and their two children, two little boys, Romulus and Remus. They end up hiding them, and they hide them out along the river Tiber. And the god Tiberius, the god of the Tiber River, and also the name of a emperor many centuries later, suckles these two little boys. And that's where you see. And I wanted to use the word suckle so badly, but that's the famous statue. You see the two little babies with the she wolf with the teats that they're drinking from.
Yeah.
And that's these two show themselves to be. And again, this is where if your father was something, then you are that thing.
Right.
And if you weren't that thing, then you try everything you could to break that and become better.
So born into slavery, slaves beget slaves.
Yes.
And so on and so forth.
Yeah. And and again, it goes into professions. And you see this through a lot of civilizations, even to this day. If you're a goldsmith, then your father is a goldsmith, you're going to be a goldsmith.
Yeah.
That's just expected. And you see this with military traditions and families. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather all fought in the military. So it's kind of mentally ingrained in you that you're going to be doing this too.
You got to kill a commie for your mommy, dog.
Exactly. But the Romans, they ate this up with by the bucket. I mean, this is their ethos. This is their reason for being. So the what ends up happening is Romulus and Remus team up with Numitor, who's their grandfather. He's a nobleman, and they end up overthrowing King Amulius. And they out the two brothers. They have their factions. And there's the 7 hills of Rome. You have Palatine Hill and then Vatican and all that stuff. So you have all these different hills in Rome.
Wait, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
So Vatican was a hill?
That's a Palatine Hill, and then you've got the Vatican was built on one of the hills in Rome.
So is that why they call it the Vatican?
I believe so.
Get the front door out of here.
Yeah, I mean, but it goes on, and it. I might be wrong on that. I'm not a Catholic historian.
Let us know in the comments.
Yes, please. But it's founded on one of the hills in Rome, and that's why it's in Rome, and that's why Romulus and Remus were fighting over where to locate the city.
Nice.
And they end up getting so pissed off at each other that Romulus kills Remus.
Damn.
And that's why the city of Rome is named Rome after Romulus, a murderer of a fratricide murderer of his brother. Kind of tells you something about the Romans. Like they're special. Shoving metal things into other people's bodies is not a thing for them. They're just like, yeah. And they do it up close in your face. Like that's the Roman way. And you see how this plays out throughout the centuries, how they end up subjugating everyone around them because they're just a little bit more special than everyone else. But you see how they tell themselves and they tell their children these stories that make them into accepting of doing these outrageous, violent things. So that leads to the next generation.
It's not looking good so far.
Yeah, well, these are keep in mind these are like 5-year-olds could repeat these stories to you. Like they told their children these stories, and we're like, oh yeah, and what? They're fine.
So they like desensitize them in
Exactly. So they talk about desensitizing to violence with movies and things like that. Well, imagine if your entertainment was puppet shows and storytellers and things
Yeah.
like this, and these are the only stories you're hearing.
right.
Kind of makes you into a warped person.
Well, yeah.
So now we go to the story of the founding of the Roman Republic. So again, you've got these. This is the story of Lucrezia. Lucretia or Lucrezia, and the founding of the Roman Republic. So again, you had the Etruscan kings ruling over the city of Rome and the surrounding Roman lands. Now there's Latins, there's Apulians, and things like that all over. What ends up happening here is the Etruscan king's son, Sextus Tarquinius. Love these names. So the Tarquins are the Etruscan kings. So this is the Tarquin clan that's running the royal family.
Right.
So his son Sextus is partying with his Roman buddies, who are like distant cousins and things like. They're all kind of interrelated. And keep in mind, civilizations, populations are smaller.
Right.
So you're probably going to know a lot of these people that you end up fighting against at some point.
Right.
So they're partying, and they're partying outside the city, and they're drinking, and the guys get to talking, and they're all like, I wonder what our wives are doing. Yeah. So they go back and they peek on their wives, and they make themselves, they're hiding away. And one wife is partying, she's drinking and hanging out, and the other one, she's gossiping with her friends. They're just basically chilling out, just fluffing off.
So they weren't making out.
No, nothing sexy. Well, there might have been, but we don't get in. We can't get in. But that's what they were expecting. They were expecting that kind of stuff. So one of the guys comes back and sees that his wife is actually spinning yarn for her family up by the lamplight. No one's around her. The slaves she already let go to bed. Keep in mind, these are noble people.
Yeah.
And she's up making wool for her family. She's spinning cloth, as a good Roman virtuous woman should be doing.
Yeah, she should be doing that, right?
Exactly. and singing while she does it. But that's the whole thing. So what ends up happening is Sextus, the son of the Etruscan king, is so smitten with her, he comes back later and he tells her one-on-one, look, you're going to let me sleep with you, or I'm going to kill you and kill one of your slaves and put the slave in the bed with you and make it look like you were banging one of your slaves.
Wow.
Yeah. Or you'll give in to my demands.
That's some Uday Kusei
Yeah,
shit right
exactly.
there.
Yeah, exactly. You see how like these people with unlimited power, they kind of do the same kinds of things.
Absolute power.
Uday Kusei, like you said.
Absolute power.
Yep. So he ends up coming back, and Lucrezia, I guess, more or less submits. And
she had no choice.
Exactly. She has no choice. So we'll come back to that point. So he sneaks off. He does his evil thing, and he sneaks off. And she comes, and there's a couple of versions. One is written by Dionysius of Halicarnassus, one of the Roman writers, where we get these stories from. So she goes and weeps to her father, who's a nobleman as well. He's the chief magistrate, and her husband, and asks for revenge, and then self-deletes. Yeah, right there at their feet with a knife through the heart, just self-deletes.
That's it?
That's it. She's like, get revenge for me. This is what happened.
So she checked out.
And she checks out.
She checked out.
Well, Titus Livius is another writer, and calls in witnesses and confesses, and even her husband's like, the mind sins, not the body. You didn't give consent. And again, she says she wants revenge squared, and then self-deletes.
That she was so not into that, to the point where she was just like, look, I'm checking out.
Yeah.
You need to avenge this.
But this speaks to how the Romans held themselves. So they had this Sophocene, Sophrosine. I'm butchering that. might
You-
dub
you
that
did
in
bet-
later.
You would do better than I would.
So it's basically about having good judgment. It's a mark of your dignitas, your standing in society. And the thing to remember with the Romans, it wasn't about how much money you had, because the money was a means to an end. It was about having clients that you would hand out money to help them pay their debts. It's like mafia kind of stuff. And you would have retainers. We'd have a bunch of clients that were beholden to you. The whole neighborhood owned you money because you owned all the different establishments. But that was the thing with Lucrezia. She was so dishonored that it was better for a Roman woman to self-delete than to live with that shame.
Yeah, that's stigma.
And they're teaching this to little girls. So you think about what the Roman mindset is, what they're creating. And so do you see gladiatorial games, and you see them go and destroy 1 million people at a time.
Yeah,
That's how and why that happened. They didn't have remorse about that kind of stuff, not like we do.
right.
So what ends up happening is a guy named Lucius Junius Brutus. He ends up being among that party that she self-deletes in front of, and he swears revenge. And he gathers a bunch of his kinsmen, gathers a bunch of other Romans, and he leads a revolt and kicks the Etruscan kings out and founds the Republic of Rome.
Wow.
All based on a violation of Lucrezia by the son of the king.
It all starts and ends with women.
Yeah.
It's messed up. I'll take that one out.
But where this comes back and the whole genetic thing comes rearing its ugly head again is A2 Brute. That's the same family with
Wait, hold on. So the same family line from that story
yes
is Et Brute?
Yeah. So
Get
Marcus Junius Brutus was the guy's name that stabbed Caesar when Caesar goes A2 Brute in the Shakespearean play.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that he's listed as doing that was his familial obligation to the clan of Brute.
So it was basically like
I've got
full circle revenge.
I have to maintain the Republic because at the time they thought Julius Caesar, or Julius Caesar, was trying to make himself a dictator, make himself the king.
Right.
Well, what do the Brute do? They take out kings.
Yeah. So he was born for that.
He was born for that.
People are born into slavery. People are born into blacksmithing. He was born into revenge
and keeping
avenging.
the Romans as a republic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Full circle. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that kind of tells you a lot about the Romans.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
And why they did the things they did.
Wow.
So the last story I wanted to tell, this is a little around the same kind of time. Romans are establishing their republic. They're fighting against a lot of different coalitions. They're real tiny, but they're real scrappy, of course, being Romans and psychopaths. But this is the story of Gaius Mucius Scaevola. Depends on how you want to pronounce it. What Scaevola means is lefty, or to be only have your left. And the reason this happened is he's fighting a war with the Etruscans and some of the Etruscan allies, and one of the kings is called Lars Porsena. He's besieging Rome. So Scaevola basically is tasked with going in and trying to assassinate the king. So he ends up coming up to Lars Porsena and mistakes the king's aide as the king, and he deletes the aide. Well, the king jumps back. He's captured. Scaevola is captured. So they bring Scaevola. They beat him up. And they bring him before Scaevola, before Lars Porsena later. And he's like, "Yeah, you tried to kill me. What? I'm gonna do you dirty. Like, you're done, dude." And Scaevola is like, "No, hold on. Behold, so you know how cheap the body is to men who have their eye on glory." And he sticks his hand in the fire and burns his hand off. And he stares at Lars Porsena while he's doing it. Doesn't scream. Doesn't sweat.
That's
pulls
so
his best Gary Busey from Lethal Weapon, and burns his hand off, his right hand. So that's why he's known as Scaevola, the
The
lefty.
lefty.
And what he ends up saying is Lars Porsena is so scared by this because he's like, they sent me, you have me, but there will be 300 more on this same mission. So Lars Porsena is like, this dude's so crazy. Like,
dude, if he burned his hand off,
like he didn't even flinch.
What are they gonna do?
Yeah, what are they gonna do if I don't catch them first?
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
So he immediately sues for peace, and that's the story of Scaevola.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah, but again, that's like it
Crazy
tells you a
story.
lot about the Romans and why and how they did the things they did.
The founding of Rome is like built on
It's
piles
a
of
horror
blood and
story.
Yes.
It is.
It literally is like Nightmare on Elm Street times 3,000.
Yeah,
Wow.
but that's the thing is like when people talk about the Romans,
Yeah.
Romans. There's a reason we talk about the Romans because they were unlike their contemporaries. They were
Right.
unlike civilizations since then.
Mm-hmm.
They had a touch of the crazy. Like they
A touch?
yeah,
They had way more than a touch.
but that's the thing. Like you would see regularly were an army of I think in the Battle of Watling Street. I think there was 20,000 Romans. This is the Boudica uprising in Britain. And there was 100,000 Britons or Celts. You think about the siege of Alesia.
Yeah.
Caesar had 60,000 ish men at one point. Vercingetorix and the Gauls were able, and this is where Asterix comes into play because he was one of those Gauls.
Yeah.
Caesar ends up defeating an army of almost 250,000 Gauls.
That's that
at the Battle of Alesia.
I don't think people understand the number scope of 250,000 people. We're talking like stadiums filled.
Yeah, that's like 4 stadiums filled full of people that were in an army that were beaten by one stadium's worth of people.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, and keep in mind too, this is in a world population of probably 15 million, 20 million people.
And we're talking hand-to-hand combat. We're not talking guns. We're not talking.
Yeah,
we're talking like you're face to face with this guy, and you got to beat the guy in front of you, and you got to stab that guy.
Yeah,
you got to kill that guy.
Yeah, you
choke that guy.
You have to have him breathe his last breath into
in
your
front
face.
Of you. In front of you,
or feel his guts spill on your knees as you disembowel him.
War has gotten a little warped, man, where you could shoot a guy from almost half a mile away.
Or now you can play a video game and fly a bomb right onto him and chase him around the tree until they trip and then you finally blow them up.
So someone said something to me the other day and they're like, I thought it was stupid when everyone just lined up and just marched towards each other. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him, I was like, bro, that's how it was. Like, what are you going to do? Like swing an axe a mile away?
I would like to do an episode on like why people fought in lines. Mm-hmm. So why do people fight in these dense ranks where they're packed shoulder to shoulder and they're shooting muskets at each other?
Yeah,
that can penetrate 2 or 3 dudes in a row. Yeah,
that's why.
Like why? Why. You have to abandon the concept of a modern repeating rifle, and you have to abandon the concept of a machine gun,
missiles.
You have to pretend like you've never even seen those things or know that they exist. The reason they fought in those lines is they would try to concentrate their firepower because they knew that maybe 10 to 15% of those shots would actually hit their target.
They were almost like kamikaze pilots, except for there was no plane.
Yeah, exactly.
You just had to run up and just stab as many people as you could.
Well, not even that, because what they would do is they'd run up and we're talking linear warfare. We're talking like 18th century Frederick the Great,
right?
Kind of stuff. 7 Years' War, American Revolution to a limited degree, that kind of fight.
Right.
The musketry was so inaccurate. The hope is that you would hit enough of the enemy that they would lose their morale and they would break and run.
Right.
It wasn't that you're going to go up and kill everybody, because they weren't powerful enough or accurate enough to be able to kill in those numbers.
Right.
There was one battle, Fontenoy, during the War of Spanish Succession that they actually did lose that many men. I mean, they lost like a third of each army, and that ended up costing the Duke of Marlborough his command.
Yeah.
Because they weren't used to casualties on that scale. The whole point was to make enough noise and inflict just enough loss that the enemy would lose their nerve and they'd run. And if you didn't have your men in those dense formations, you didn't get enough volume of fire out to make those muskets worth carrying.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have muskets, then what do you have? You have hand-to-hand weapons, you have bows and things like that, which require a lot of training.
Yeah.
And a lot of professionalism to master those.
And a lot of balls, dog.
And a lot of balls. And that's a good point, too. Not every man that you just grab out of a field is going to be able to run up to somebody and chop them with an axe and do it well.
Right.
A man with a musket, you give him 2 weeks in the army, he's at least able to fire that musket and have a percentage chance of hitting someone.
That's crazy.
And then you can get him and 50 of his buddies as opposed to 3 guys that you train to use a sword or something like that.
Wow. So that's the founding of Rome.
Yeah. And a brief introduction to linear warfare.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And with that, y'all, we are out of time.
Lucky for you, we're out of time.